The vastness of space was silent, dark, endless. Millions of stars blinked quietly, far away and cold. But somewhere, near the edge of the known galaxy, a signal broke the silence. A weak, trembling call for help. On Earth's deepest space, listening. Post Commander Alex Reyes stared at the flickering screen. The signal was faint, almost lost in the noise. It was not like anything they had heard before. "Is this real?" Alex asked the science officer beside him. Dr. Hannah Lee, the lead scientist, nodded slowly. "Yes, sir. It's coming from the Zeta Quadrant, near a star system that was thought empty. The pattern, it's a distress call. The language. It's unlike any known communication." Alex's brow furrowed. "Distress call? From where? Who? Why was it only just now being heard?" "We should send a rescue team," Alex said. The words firm but cautious. "If someone is in trouble, we can't ignore it." The room buzzed with tension. Military officers and scientists exchanged worried glances. "Commander," said Captain Daniels, the fleet commander, "sending a fleet this far is dangerous. We don't know what's out there. The last time a ship vanished near the Zeta Quadrant, we lost contact for weeks." Alex's eyes met Daniels's, but doing nothing is worse. We have a duty to help. A long silence followed. Finally, the council agreed. A rescue fleet would launch immediately. Days later, Resolute and its accompanying ships cut through space toward the signal's source. The fleet was strong advanced fighters, heavy cruisers, and support ships, all prepared for anything. Commander Reyes stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching the star field ahead. The crew was tense, many exchanging nervous looks. No one knew what awaited them. "Status report," Alex ordered. "Lieutenant Mayfield." The communications officer answered. "Signal is getting stronger, sir, originating from a planet on the outer edge of the system. It's ... dark, almost dead." Alex frowned. "Any response from the source?" "None yet," Mayfield said. "Our messages are going unanswered." The fleet grew closer to the planet, a small blue-green world surrounded by swirling clouds. But it looked lifeless. No signs of cities, no flashes of technology. Just empty. As the fleet prepared to enter orbit, strange things began to happen. Sensors picked up movements in the shadows, but no life forms appeared on screens. Ships experienced sudden power drops and strange malfunctions. Communications scrambled, voices distorted. Dr. Lee studied the data in her lab, her face pale. "Commander, these readings are unusual. The planet's atmosphere is full of electromagnetic interference. It's like the planet itself is trying to hide." Alex nodded. "Is it dangerous?" "We don't know yet, but we should be careful." That night, the crew watched the planet from their windows. The clouds shifted, revealing dark shapes moving across the surface. "Are those buildings?" asked Ensign Patel, pointing. Alex studied the images. Ruins, old, crumbling cities half buried in dust and shadow. "What happened here?" Someone whispered. No one had an answer. Suddenly, the silence shattered. Alarms blared through the fleet. "Contact," shouted Lieutenant Mayfield. "Multiple fast-moving objects entering our space. Prepare for combat." Alex ordered. Ships snapped to action, weapons powered and targeting systems locked. But the attackers were different. They were not ships. They were creatures, fast, sleek, and deadly. They moved through space like shadows come alive. The fleet fired. Lasers and missiles lit the void. But the creatures dodged effortlessly, striking back with savage precision. One fighter was torn apart. Another disabled. Panic spread. "Who are they?" the pilot cried. "Overcomes." Alex's voice was calm, but sharp. "Unknown. Stay alert. Defensive formation." The creatures pulled back as suddenly as they attacked, disappearing into the darkness. The fleet took damage, but no ships were lost. The silence returned. A heavy, tense, quiet. "What just happened?" asked Captain Daniels, frowning. Alex's eyes never left the view screen. "We're dealing with something new, something dangerous." The next day, A shuttle landed on the planet's surface. Small team, led by Dr. Lee and Lieutenant Harper, stepped into the ruins. The air was thick with dust and silence. Their boots echoed on cracked streets. Strange symbols covered the walls, glowing faintly. "It's an ancient language," Dr. Lee said, tracing her fingers over the carvings. "But it's different from anything we know." Suddenly, a low growl came from the shadows. The team turned, weapons raised, from the darkness. Glowing eyes appeared. Creatures larger and more terrifying than those in space emerged. They had sharp claws, armored skin, and a silent, deadly grace. The team fired, but the creatures vanished before they could be hit. Back on the Resolute, Alex listened to the distress call again. It was not just a plea for help, it was a warning. The message repeated in strange code, "Do not come." "They wait, Deathworlders come." Alex's face was hard. "Deathworlders? What is that?" Dr. Lee looked grim. "We don't know, but they are not friendly." The fleet gathered in orbit, tense and alert. The mysterious creatures were everywhere. The planet and in space. The SOS was no simple call for help. It was a trap, and humanity was walking into a nightmare. "Prepare for the worst," Alex said. "We don't know what the Deathworlders want, but we will find out." The stars shone coldly above. The edge of the galaxy had just become a place of danger and death, and the fight for survival had begun. The fleet moved closer to the mysterious planet, sending the SOS. As the Resolute and its accompanying ships entered orbit, the full view of the world below came into focus. It was a cold, dark place with jagged mountains and vast deserts stretching as far as the eye could see. No bright lights, no signs of life or civilization that could be seen from space. The silence was eerie, broken only by the faint hum of the fleet's engines. Commander Alex Reyes felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. The planet seemed dead, or worse, it was hiding something. Sensors scanned endlessly, but all they found were ruins half buried in dust, empty cities with collapsed buildings, and streets overgrown with strange alien plants. The atmosphere was thick with particles that scrambled their instruments, making communication with the surface difficult. Yet through the interference, the faint SOS signal still pulsed, a desperate heartbeat begging for help. The crew prepared a landing party to investigate, but no one knew what awaited them below. When the shuttle touched down, the team was met with a ghostly landscape. The sky was heavy with ash, and a cold wind swept through the broken streets. Dr. Hannah Lee led the group, her eyes scanning every shadow and corner. The ruins whispered stories of a great civilization that had once flourished, but now lay in ruin. Strange carvings and symbols adorned crumbling walls, but their meaning was lost to time. As the team moved deeper into the city, a growing sense of unease settled over them. Silence was unnatural, as if the planet itself was holding its breath. Suddenly, distant sounds echoed, soft movements, barely audible. The team froze. Out of the shadows came creatures unlike anything seen before, large, sleek, covered in dark armor that shimmered in the weak sunlight. Their eyes glowed with a cold intelligence, and their movements were fluid and deadly. Without warning, they attacked. The rescue team fired back, but the creatures moved too fast, disappearing into the ruins like ghosts. The planet had become a hunting ground, and humanity was the prey. Back in orbit, the fleet's sensors went haywire. Strange energy readings flared up around the planet, and ships reported sudden power failures. Communications grew distorted, and static noises filled the channels. Commander Reyes ordered all ships to remain on high alert. The SOS had led them into a trap, one carefully laid by the creatures they now called Deathworlders, the name sent a chill through the fleet. These beings were not just savage animals. They were hunters with strategy and cunning, using the planet's strange energies to confuse and isolate their enemies. Every time the fleet tried to respond, the Deathworlders adapted, countering their moves before they could strike.
I'll arrest you.
Mission was no longer about saving others. It had become a fight for survival. Alex realized that this battle would test every skill and weapon humanity had. The SOS from the edge of the galaxy was a call for salvation, but what they found instead was a nightmare waiting to be unleashed. The fleet drifted silently above the dark planet, watching as the strange world hid its secrets beneath swirling clouds and shifting shadows. The crew was tense, every eye glued to the view screens, searching for any sign of movement. For days, the strange interference continued, power surges, scrambled messages, and eerie quiet from the surface. Then, without warning, the calm shattered. The alarms screamed through the ships, lighting up the bridge with urgent red flashes. Contact! Multiple hostiles approaching fast. Lieutenant Mayfield shouted, her fingers flying over the console. The fleet scrambled into battle stations as Commander Reyes barked orders to raise shields and prepare weapons. But this was no ordinary enemy. Out in the void, shapes darted like shadows come alive, fast, silent, and deadly. The Deathworlders had attacked. The first clash was brutal and chaotic. The fleet's advanced weapons fired in volleys, but the Deathworlders moved with terrifying speed and precision, dodging every shot. They struck with savage power, tearing through fighter ships and crippling support vessels. One pilot's desperate call broke over the comms. They're not ships, they're living weapons. They hunt like predators. The fleet fought back hard. But the Deathworlders' attacks were relentless, savage, and unlike any threat humanity had ever faced. The destruction was swift and unforgiving. Several ships were damaged, and the panic began to rise. Crew members who had trained for space battles against machines or aliens were now facing something far worse, an enemy that combined animal instinct with deadly intelligence. As the skirmish slowed, the Deathworlders suddenly retreated, melting back into the darkness as quickly as they had appeared. The fleet was left shaken, but not defeated. Commander Reyes gathered his officers. "They know how to fight, and they know our weaknesses," he said, voice hard with determination. "This isn't just a simple rescue mission anymore. We are facing a threat that wants us dead." Below on the planet, the team sent down to investigate faced dangers of their own. Strange tracks and ruined settlements told stories of fear and destruction. The Deathworlders watched from the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike again. Commander Reyes realized with cold clarity the SOS was not a cry for help. It was a trap set by the Deathworlders to lure humanity into their deadly world. Now, survival would depend on fighting smarter, harder, and faster than ever before. The rescue fleet was stuck. The planet's thick atmosphere and violent storms made leaving orbit impossible. Every attempt to jump to hyperspace was blocked by sudden energy bursts, like invisible walls holding them trapped. Commander Alex Reyes stood on the bridge of the Resolute, staring at the swirling storm clouds below. The planet seemed alive, watching, waiting. The Deathworlders had turned their home into a deadly fortress, communication with the surface. Team was weak, sometimes cutting out completely. The crew grew restless, the weight of the unknown pressing down on them like a heavy fog. Each day brought new dangers, strange creatures prowling the ruins, unexplained power failures, and the ever-present feeling that they were not just fighting the Deathworlders, but the planet itself. Desperate for answers, Reyes ordered a search for the origin of the SOS signal. Deep beneath the planet's cracked surface, the landing team found a hidden bunker, its entrance buried under years of dust and rubble. Inside, they discovered ancient technology, old, but still active. The bunker's walls were covered in glowing symbols, and holographic recordings flickered to life when the team entered. The message was clear and chilling. The SOS was sent by a small group of survivors trapped during a great war between the Deathworlders and another forgotten alien race. The survivors had hoped for rescue, but the message ended with a warning. Do not come. They wait. Deathworlders come. The team exchanged grim looks. The SOS was never meant to save anyone. It was a trap to lure others into the Deathworlders' hunting ground. As the fleet tried to process this grim truth, sensors picked up a new threat, a fleet of Deathworlder ships emerging from the planet's dark side, heading straight toward the Resolute and its allies. The rescue mission had become a deadly game of survival, with the Deathworlders controlling every move. Commander Reyes tightened his grip on the command chair. "Prepare for battle," he said quietly. We're going to learn just how dangerous they really are. The cold silence of space was shattered by the arrival of the Deathworlder fleet. Ships unlike anything humanity had seen before, massive and dark, like living shadows moving with deadly purpose. Commander Alex Reyes stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching the ominous fleet approach. Every sensor screamed danger. The Deathworlders were coming for them. But who were these enemies? What was their story? Why were they so deadly? The answers lay buried deep in the planet's dark past, hidden in the ruins that the landing team had only just begun to explore. Dr. Hannah Lee gathered the crew in the ship's briefing room. The holographic display showed ancient images recovered. From the bunker on the planet, the Deathworlders are not just another alien species, she began, her voice steady but full of urgency. They come from a world that was destroyed long ago, a world that forced them to become what they are today. She clicked to the next image, a map of a dying planet covered in toxic storms and burning deserts. Their homeworld was a harsh place full of dangers. To survive, the Deathworlders evolved into ruthless hunters. Their bodies adapted to extreme conditions. Their minds became sharp and savage. They developed warlike cultures, fighting among themselves to control the few. Safe places left. They became nomads, moving through space, searching for new homes. The crew listened in silence. They are warriors, Hannah continued, but not like us. They don't fight for honor or peace. They fight because they must. They are brutal and relentless. Commander Reyes frowned. What about the ancient races mentioned in the bunker message? Dr. Lee nodded. Long ago, other advanced species noticed the Deathworlders' rising threat. They tried to stop them. There were great wars, battles that shaped entire star systems. But the Deathworlders could not be defeated. They adapted, grew stronger, and eventually wiped out or scattered many of those races. The SOS signal was from the last survivors, hiding and hoping for rescue. But it was a final warning, a plea to stay away. A heavy silence fell over the room. The crew realized their mission was no longer a rescue. It was a fight against an unstoppable force, a nightmare that had been growing in the shadows for centuries. Suddenly, alarms blared. Commander Reyes ordered, "We must hold them off." The crew moved with practiced speed. Fighters scrambled, weapons charged, shields raised. The battle was about to begin, but deep inside, everyone knew it would be the hardest fight of their shapes seemed almost alive, dark, sleek, and covered with armor that shimmered under the stars. They moved with deadly precision, attacking in waves. But the Deathworlders were brutal and clever. Their weapons cut through human shields, their tactics savage and unexpected. On the Resolute, Alex watched the battle unfold. "They're learning," he said grimly. "Every move we make, they adapt." The fight was close, brutal, dumb. Human ships were damaged, some lost. But the fleet held together, fighting with everything they had. During a brief lull, Dr. Lee made an important discovery. "Commander, the Deathworlder ships are powered by the same energy source as the bunker's device. That device might be the key to defeating them." Alex nodded. "Then we have no choice. We must find that device and use it before they destroy us." The fleet prepared for a daring plan. A small team would land on the planet, retrieve the ancient device, and activate it. It was risky, but the only hope left. As the ships braced for another attack, the battle continued, each side fighting for survival, the fate of humanity hanging in the balance. The battle raged on above the Deathworlder planet, a deadly dance of light and shadow. Explosions lit the blackness of space, and the Resolute shook with the impact of enemy fire. Commander Alex Reyes stood on the bridge, eyes sharp, voice steady as he coordinated his fleet. Every second counted. The team on the planet's surface had only a narrow window to find and activate the ancient device. Dr. Hannah Lee had discovered a device that could change the course of the war. But the planet was a maze of ruins, shifting storms, and hidden enemies. The Deathworlders were hunting them at every turn, their deadly presence felt in every shadow and every silent step. Shaking violently as it fought through the turbulent clouds, Dr. Lee led the team through the ruins, their boots crunching on broken stone and dust. The air was thick with tension and an unspoken fear. Every sound was a warning. Every movement could mean death. The team's scanners flickered, struggling against the planet's strange energy that seemed to bend reality itself. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls, as if the ruins themselves were alive with ancient power. Suddenly, a low growl echoed nearby. The team froze, weapons raised, hearts pounding. The team fired, but the creatures disappeared into the ruins, as if the planet was helping them hide and hunt. Meanwhile, above in orbit, the battle was growing fiercer. The Deathworlder fleet pushed harder, their attacks more savage, more coordinated. Ships in the rescue fleet were damaged, some crippled and drifting. The fleet's energy was draining fast, and Commander Reyes knew their time was running out. He could not afford to lose the team on the surface. They were the only hope. Using every trick, every tactic he had learned in his years of command, Reyes kept the fleet in fighting shape, but the stress was clear in his eyes. "We hold the line," he said quietly. "Protect our people. We survive." Back on the ground, the retrieval team reached the ancient bunker. The entrance was massive, carved with symbols that pulsed with energy. Inside, the air was cool and still. The device sat on a pedestal, humming softly with power. As Dr. Lee moved to activate it, alarms blared. The Deathworlders were closing in, sensing the team's presence. "Hurry!" Alex Harper shouted, covering her as she worked. The device's surface lit up, ancient mechanisms turning to life after centuries of silence. But just as the team began their retreat, the Deathworlders attacked in full force. Fierce battle erupted inside the bunker, lasers flashing, claws slashing, desperate shouts echoing in the confined space. Dr. Lee's fingers flew over the controls, sweat dripping down her face. The device sparked and hummed louder, and a wave of energy burst outward, knocking the Deathworlders back. The team barely escaped, rushing back to their shuttle as the ancient power reshaped the battlefield. Above, the fleet felt the change. Immediately, Commander Reyes seized the moment, ordering a full counterattack. The fleet struck with renewed power, pushing the enemy back into the shadows. But the battle was far from over. The Deathworlders would return, and humanity had only just begun to fight. As the shuttle lifted off, Dr. Lee looked back at the dark planet below. The signal they had followed was no longer a call for help. It was a warning. And now, armed with the ancient device, humanity stood a chance, but only just. The war for survival had entered a new phase, more dangerous and uncertain than ever before. The battle above the Deathworlder planet was far from over. Even with the ancient device activated, the enemy was fierce, relentless. The fleet had won a momentary advantage, but the Deathworlders were not so easily defeated. Commander Alex Reyes stood firm on the bridge of the Resolute, his face set with determination. Around him, the crew worked without pause, pilots dodging enemy fire, engineers patching damaged systems, and soldiers preparing for boarding actions. Every second was a test of endurance, every decision a step on the knife's edge between victory and disaster. Meanwhile, the atmosphere around the planet churned violently. Storms of charged particles and radioactive dust swirled, stirred by the device's awakening power. The Deathworlders used the planet's wild energy to fuel their attacks, drawing strength from the very environment itself. The fleet's ships were battered not only by the enemy's weapons, but by the harsh elements of the planet's magnetic storms. Communication lines flickered and died, forcing commanders to rely on instinct and trust. On the surface, the landing team faced dangers. Beyond the Deathworlders' direct attacks, the planet itself seemed alive in a hostile way. Shifting ground swallowed pathways, ancient traps triggered with deadly precision, and strange creatures lurked in the darkness. Dr. Hannah Lee led the group cautiously, her mind racing to understand the device's full potential. "We have to keep moving," she urged, "before the planet consumes us all." Their only hope lay in completing the final phase of the device's activation, but time was running out. The Deathworlders were closing in from all sides. Back in orbit, the enemy launched a desperate counterattack. The fleet was pushed back, losing ships and crew. But Commander Reyes refused to surrender. "Hold your ground," he shouted. We fight for every inch of space, the crew's fear turned to fierce resolve. Fighters rallied, shields flared, and weapons blazed. It was a brutal, desperate battle where survival seemed impossible, but surrender was not an option. Suddenly, the ancient device emitted a powerful pulse, sending a shockwave across the battlefield. The Deathworlder ships shuddered and staggered, their systems disrupted. The fleet seized the chance to press the attack, pushing the enemy back further than ever before. Cheers erupted in the Resolute's command center, but Alex knew better than to celebrate too soon. The Deathworlders were adaptive, and the planet still held many secrets. As the battle quieted for a moment, a new threat emerged, enormous. Deathworlder warship, unlike any seen before, appeared from the planet's dark side. It was a living fortress, bristling with weapons and defenses. The ship moved with terrifying speed, heading straight for the fleet's command center. All eyes turned to the screen in alarm. "This is it," Reyes said quietly. "The real fight begins now." The dark warship loomed closer, its massive silhouette blotting out stars behind it. Commander Alex Reyes felt the weight of every soul aboard the Resolute and the entire fleet. This was the last battle, the moment where survival or extinction would be decided. The Deathworlder's death fleet was no longer just a threat. It was an unstoppable force bent on wiping out humanity's hope. The crew readied their weapons, hearts pounding, but spirits unbroken. Every pilot, every gunner, every engineer knew what was at stake. The warship unleashed a volley of devastating energy blasts that rocked the fleet. Shields flickered under the assault, alarms screaming warnings, but the fleet fought back with everything they had. The ancient device's power pulsed through the ships, enhancing their systems and turning the tide slowly in humanity's favor. Fighters swarmed like angry hornets, darting around the monstrous vessel, hitting weak points with precision strikes. Explosions blossomed across the enemy's hull, but it was far from finished. On the planet below, Dr. Hannah Lee and the landing team raced against time. The device's full activation required a connection to the planet's core, and the Deathworlders knew this. Swarms of deadly creatures pressed in, forcing the team into brutal combat amid the crumbling ruins. Every step forward was paid in sweat and blood. Hannah's fingers trembled as she aligned the device's final interface, the planet itself trembling beneath her feet. With a final surge of energy, the device synchronized with the core, sending a wave of electromagnetic energy. Radiating outwards above, the Deathworlder warship convulsed violently as systems began to fail. Its deadly weapons faltered, and the ship's movements grew sluggish. Commander Reyes seized the moment. All ships, full attack. Focus fire on the warship's core. The fleet poured every ounce of firepower into the giant enemy ship. Beams of energy sliced through its armor, finally breaching the hull. Inside, chaos erupted as systems failed and creatures screamed in fury. The warship shuddered once, twice, and then exploded into a brilliant fireball. Scattering debris into space, the battle was won, but at a great cost. Many ships were lost, and countless lives sacrificed. The SOS that had once been a call for help had become a call to war, a desperate fight for survival against a merciless enemy. As the fleet regrouped, Alex looked out at the stars, knowing the war was far from over. The Deathworlders were dangerous, but humanity was stronger and smarter. They had faced death and survived. And this was only the beginning of a new chapter, a story of hope, courage, and the endless fight to protect the galaxy.